Ram Adarniya Gurujan and all the members who are joining me in this virtual session of this international event to celebrate 50 years of Nartan Dance Academy. I understand 50 years is not a small span. It needs whole of the dedication, the commitment, the vision, and the passion to run an academy, and that to a dance academy in a society which is out and out used to be called a commercial society, that is Ahmedabad and Gujarat. So thank you so much, Smita Ben, for this continuation of the journey and becoming an icon and model to the youngsters to keep the traditions of dance alive. Because if there is dance, there is Shiva. If there is Shiva, there is life. If there is life, there is Uma. And without Uma, where is the energy? Where is the Shakti? Where is the Jivan? So you are the precursor of Jivan, precursor of that thought that actually brings a smile to our faces when our eyes are very habitual of frowns. So amidst the frowning, you are the beauty and you spread that beauty of dance to the society. Once again, thank you so much. I'm really humbled. I'm really honored to be here amidst all of you. I try my best to present before you how I have decoded Natya Shastra. When Ben called me up and she wanted me to address a session, she let it free for me what topic I would like to present. And I requested Ben that I would like to talk on Natya Shastra. Not only it is relevant to not only it is relevant to the dancers, but the way I have decoded, it is more relevant to the scientists, it is more relevant to the medical practitioners, it is more relevant to the engineers than to the performers. This is how I have read Natya Shastra. When I present Natya Shastra, I don't want to present only Ras and Bhav, which is the primary concept out of it. Secondly, I don't use PowerPoint presentations or films or slides in between. I would just like to engage in talks because that is how we have progressed with the Samvad Parampara, with the Shruti and Smriti, and with the compilation of the thought where our cognitive sciences, our interactive, our Jagrit Mastishk, it intercepts the learning, it intercepts the listening, intercepts the hearing, and then creates Gyan. That is how Natya Shastra was also created. It is said that it is the fifth Veda. And before I forget, when you have presented me very elaborately, and I'm humbled with the introduction you have given to me, in a tradition where we are humbled by the knowledge, the words become heavy. And when we use more and more words, they come as the static identity of a person. So what Natya Shastra does, exactly what I would like to do with myself, is to come out of the book and go to the life, come out of the written languages and find out the meaning. And that is how I titled this session as Rereading Natya Shastra. When we say rereading, it means not only once. One rereading won't be enough. Rereading means many times we have to use the word re before coming down to the word reading. And this repetition, this reaching out again and again and again, this gives us that insight with what perhaps Natya Shastra might be written. We all know we all need happiness. That is the aim of life. The ultimate aim of life is Anand. And when it joins us with the spiritual form, we call it Paramanand. But what is that which brings us to Paramanand? There are three stages in our life: Sat, Chit, and Anand. The center is Chit, and Chit is never static. Chit is very chanchal. Chit is very dynamic. It shakes its shape with a fraction of the thought. So if the Chit is shaken, our Sat and Anand are also shaken. To reach out to the Paramanand, we need to adjust Chit to Samyak Sthiti, to Sambhava, to Samdrishti. And that is what Natya Shastra teaches us, how to attain equilibrium in life. If we fail ourselves, then go to arts. Art has the capacity to bring you that happiness which we fail ourselves to bring our own to. This is an example. If we are in pain and if we don't know how to word our pain, we start searching for some song and start singing that song which would tell us about our pain. So someone else has written that as the form of art, and we are adopting it for that transient state of our mind. So art actually explains us. And once we find the right connect with the words, with the tunes, with the moods, we find happiness. So even sorrow has happiness, and that is how even Karun is a ras. Even the Jugupsa has a ras. Basically, all emotions have their own state of happiness. So art is a purgation. Art is a purification. Art has that particular power that will bring us to the life. So what is Natya Shastra? Natya Shastra is definitely not a book of art. It is pure sciences, out and out sciences, written about 2,500 years ago. There are 5,600 shloka in Natya Shastra. There are 36 chapters, and 36 chapters are clubbed in such a manner that first 5 chapters, they talk about engineering. Next 5 chapters, they talk about anatomy, including ras and bhav. It is nothing to do with art. Another 5 chapters, it talk about civil engineering. Another 5 chapters, it talks about the medical sciences. Another 5 chapters, it talks about the grammar, the grammaturgy. So it's all about, and whenever we talk about grammar, it is all about computation. It is all about the ICT, what we know today. It's a pure synchronization of the sound in a particular frequency that would echo. So Natya Shastra is a wonderful arrangement of sciences as a treatise. I'll open up, I'll explain each and everything. But this is how Bharat Muni has laid the plot of Natya Shastra. This is the spectrum. This is the plan. Who is Bharat Muni? Is he one writer? Is he the author? So in our parampara, in Bharatiya parampara, no author is called anonymous, Agyat. There is no one called Agyat. So we have given them names of Vyas, Ved, and Bharat. And for ladies, it is Brahmavadini. So we have 4 types of adjectives which have become the proper nouns to these anonymous authors. There is a group of people who have contributed into the creation of Natya Shastra. And it is truly so, because a person who is an author cannot be a civil engineer. A person who is a civil engineer cannot be a physician. A physician cannot be a grammarian. So we need to have these specialists workshop together once we see the design of Natya Shastra. That is why it is proven that Natya Shastra is not the work of one author. because it deals each and every topic with utmost precision. That precision is there. So let us start with the first chapter. The first chapter says, Na tad jnanam, na tad shilpam, na sa vidya, na sa kala, na so yogo, na tat karmam, natya asmin yanna vidyate. Nothing is left out from this macrocosm. Natya is the replica of life. Replica of life means whatever there is there in the physical world has to be there and in more of the degrees in the Natya. So there is nothing left. No skill, no gyan, no yog, no karm, nothing is left. Natya asmin yanna vidyate, which doesn't happen in Natya Shastra or in Natya. So this is how he starts. And then he says, okay, it is a fifth Ved because there were already four Vedas, and Vedas are said to be the ultimate knowledge systems. So nothing can be created out of Vedas. We have to create again and again and again the Vedas only. So when we create Natya Shastra, it means it has to borrow certain components from certain Vedas. So there are four Vedas: Rig Veda, Atharveda, Yajurveda, Samveda. And there are four major components of Natya. Plot or the words have been taken from Rig Veda. The action have been taken from Yajurveda. The pathya, the substance, the summary, the worldliness, the action has been taken from Atharvaved, and from Samved, music has been taken. This is how the four Vedas have contributed into the action of Natya Ved, into the composition of Natya Ved. Now, Bharat Muni was very intelligent. Let us call him in the singular form. All Bharat Muni who were writing their own components, they were very intelligent. So I call them Bharat Muni in a singular form. He knew that let us pick up very simple words and then give them the technical form. So he has picked up what is such simple thing in our life, which is in continuation for years and years and years from since the manhood or the human life has taken place. There is only one part which is common to all ages, and that one part is food. And food is cooked, and the place where the food is cooked is kitchen. So kitchen is a continual symbol in this life. So Bharat Muni has taken maximum words from the kitchen, and he has taken those words which till date have not lost their original meaning. And I'll give you here, there are many examples, but for today I have picked up 3 examples. The first word is rang. In our life, we have rang in the house only in the kitchen. Kitchen is the center of color in a house. So we say pyazia or gulabi or dudhiya or bangani, all colors reside in kitchen. So first word he has taken rang. The second word he has taken ras. And the third word he has taken patra. Rang, ras and patra, such simple words. And would you imagine with the same meaning? He has not changed the meaning at all. So the rang means rang, that means colors. Ras means ras, that means juice. And patra means patra, that is the empty vessel. But see how he adds the technical part to all these 3 words. From the word rang, he shifts the rang to the moods. And he says shades of moods. Then he uses it for the Rang Bhumi, for the Rang Manch. Without colors, you can't create Rang Bhumi. Without colors, you can't create Rang Manch, because colors are the symbols of mood, and that is what he does the first thing, associating Rang with the mood. And how do we connect with the mood? We connect with the mood with the colors again. So out of that Rang Shala, Rang Bhumi, Rang Manch, All these words have been taken without changing the basic meaning of the word rang. The second word is ras. I'll come to it a bit later because it needs slightly longer disposition. But the third word is patra. What is patra? Patra is an empty vessel. It doesn't have its own identity. But the moment you fill it up with anything, you fill it up with water, so it is called jal patra. You fill it up with doodh, it becomes dugdh patra. You fill it up with shakkar, it becomes sharkara patra or madhu patra. What is he doing? He is creating actor like a patra. To live a character, the actor has to be like a patra, totally empty. He has to fill or she has to fill herself with that particular essence of the character each time one actor plays a new character. So he calls the performer as the patra. Each time the performer has to empty the self to fill it up again with a new character. So without changing the essence of the meaning of the word patra, he has used the word patra. And today we say, the patra of Ram was played by Arun Govil. And we know, okay, patra means what? Patra means a character. But he has retained the meaning or the symbolism of that empty vessel. So identities are created with the different filling into the patra. I'll come to ras a bit later. Well, after picking up these words, because he started with Rangshala, Rangbhumi, Rangmanch, he uses civil engineering. There is an author who writes the drama or the script. There is a musician, there are actors, there are singers, everything is there. But where do we perform? So we perform on this stage. And who makes this stage? Can a dramatist make a stage? Can an actor make a stage? Can a dancer make a stage? Who makes a stage? The stage is made by the civil engineer. The civil engineer decides whether it would be rectangular or square or amphitheater or angular or circular or semicircular. What is the need of the drama? Is there only one lok? So there is one loka of the stage. If there is three lok, dharti, akash, patal, so the stage will be three tier. Is there a scene of war? Is there a scene of dance? Is there a scene of nadi? The surface of the stage also changes. Who does it? Only a civil engineer does it. So for the ease of civil engineer, Bharat Muni gives dimensions. He gives exact dimensions according to the number of audience the stage should be there. If the audience is just 25, then what should be the size of the stage? Audience is in thousands, then what will be the size of the stage? If there is no light and no electricity as it used to be at the time of Bharat Muni, there was no electricity, there was no mic, then how do they? And we know in Sanskrit natak, there is whisper, antar kathan. There is very small soliloquy also, whispers also. So that whisper should be heard by the last person sitting in the audience. How does it create? What should be the size of the, gumbad? Does it have a roof or not? Is it open air or what? Do they have to sit in the semicircle very near to the stage or what? These are all the issues of civil engineering. Not only that, he also tells if there is a nadi in the drama, then the surface of this stage has to be slippery. You cannot have rough stage and then show the nadi over there. And on the other side, you can't have a very smooth stage to show the war field. So he is very particular in telling about the types of drama and the types of stages. Not only that, he gives us the material through which that rajju, that string is to be made, which will measure the stage. And here he joins astronomy with the civil engineering. And he says, okay, these are the material, you prepare the Rajju, and then if you measure the stage, and if that Rajju breaks from the middle, it means the drama will be a flop show. If the Rajju breaks from the side of the right edge, it would, it would be appreciated till 3/4, and last 1/4 needs, corrections or something. Predictions. While creating the stage for a drama, during the measurement only, the dramatist would know where the corrections are needed. Is it a small science? With just the measurement, he's just measuring the stage. While measuring the stage, if nothing breaks, the drama is a super duper success. And it gives you so many types of Rajju over there. For Dheer Nayak, this type of Rajju be used. For Mudita Naika, this type of Rajju be used. It's amazing. It's amazing science. How do we create Rangshala in a Rang Bhumi? What is Brahma Sthan? What is the center? Here, Chit comes. Chit is the center. Brahma is the center. It has to be emptied to bring the Satya and Anand. So how do you create the equilibrium? So he says center of the stage is the Brahmasthan, and then we have Das Disha. And in Das Disha, the 10 directions, we have their own deities. Their deities have to be maintained like that only. We have to go to the Vayavya Kon or Ishan Kon, or all these Purva, Paschim, Uttar, Dakshin, Disha, Urdhva, Niche, everything he talks about. So once he talks about in detail about the Rang Bhumi, Rangshala and Rangmanch, and in Rangmanch he doesn't forget anything. He creates galleries which we call Nepathya. He creates the back gallery which he called Parshva. So he has Parshva, he has the the front side, he has the galleries, he has the green rooms. Everything is so much in place that today we can create a replica if we read first 4 chapters of Natya Shastra, where he talks about the Rang Bhumi and Rangmanch. Going further to that, what he is doing, chapter number 6 and 7 of Natya Shastra are very, very famous, and it has become synonym of Natya Shastra. If I talk of Natya Shastra without rereading, I would say, okay, Natya Shastra talks about Ras and Bhav. There are 9 rasas and there are bhavas, which are the sthai bhava, and then there are other types of bhavas as well. So Natya Shastra is basically ras and bhav. Here we are mistaken. He's not talking at all of emotions. These ras and bhav, we think he's talking of emotions. He is a bigger scientist. Tell me, give me an answer. What is that organ that generates emotions? From which organ do we have emotions? Can we have an answer? Can anyone unmute and tell me which is that organ in our body that actually creates emotions? Why do we cry? Why do we laugh? Why are we depressed? Why are we a brave person? Why are we in compassion? What is Vatsalya? Which organ is the seat of emotions? Is anyone answering me that?
May I?
Sorry?
May I try?
Sure, ma'am.
A heart or the right brain?
Okay, I'll answer together. Right.
Okay.
Anyone, please don't repeat the answer. If something else is there, then please tell.
Can I also try?
Yes, Mahak.
The brain?
Okay. Please go ahead and don't repeat the answers, please. Just one more answer if you can answer that.
Hello. Can I also try?
Ji, Kushani ji.
Can it be gut?
Kushani. Can it be?
Gut. Your gut.
Okay, no. None of these. Sorry. Heart is just a pumping machine. It doesn't do anything else but pumps our blood. Brain is nothing but the coordination center. It just coordinates the nerve, just like the train, the web of train, and someone at the control center. It just takes care of all there is no collision. Okay, Ji, Urvi Ji, I think you want to say something?
Yeah, eyes can see something.
No, ma'am. These are the senses. I'm telling you, what brilliance he has. I'm trying to tell you what brilliance Natya Shastra has. We have never imagined what he's talking actually. He is talking out and out medical sciences. He's not talking at all about our senses or bhav or pratyaksh or paroksh, nothing. The organs which actually relate to emotions are glands, granthi. We have 12 glands. 6 glands are duct glands and 6 glands are ductless glands. डक्टलेस मीन्स उसमें छेद नहीं है और उसमें से कोई तरल पदार्थ नहीं निकलता है. There is no profusion out of it. And duct means उसमें छेद है और तरल पदार्थ निकलता है. For example, our tear glands. We have tears in our eye. Our sweat glands, we have sweat on our body. We have, taste glands where we have these lard and all. So there are 6 glands which are duct glands and 6 glands which are ductless glands. What are the ductless glands? The thyroid, the pituitary, the adrenal. Have you heard about these? These are 12 glands. These glands are the seats of emotion. So when we are in depression, we say, oh, hypothyroid. When something, it dreads us, some wild animal is after us, or suddenly we find something, we start in action, we start running and we say, oh, adrenals are activated. Somewhere the acidity is there, the jealousy is there, and we say, oh, our pituitary is malfunctioning. We have the reactions from the glands, and whenever any gland is activated, it starts releasing the juice. That is the ras Bharat Muni is talking about. He's not talking about the ras of Mosami or Gajar or Nibu. He is talking about that ras which, by seeing a performance, we connect with us and our gland becomes activated. It starts releasing the juice and that emotion becomes the primary emotion at that particular performance. Hence, whenever we are suffering from psychosomatic diseases, the doctors say, hear good music, be with the happy people, change your surroundings. Why the doctor is not giving us medicines and talking in this terminology? Because it's the gland we need to calibrate to cure ourselves, to make the chitta samyak. We come back again to the chit, and dance, natya, art, kala has immense potential to calibrate that harmony, that symphony in our disturbed body. That is why we go back to art, whether it is poetry, whether it is drama, whether it is song, whether it is music, whether it is painting, whether it is a sculpture. Any form of art, it pleases us because it calibrates that, fine-tunes that disturbed state of chitta, which is the Brahmasthan of our Jivan. I think I am making sense. So this ras is the medical term that Bharat Muni has taken up. It has nothing to do with the ras and bhav. I give you a beautiful example from Kalidas. Why he is called such a magnanimous dramatist. There is a scene, and in that scene, there is Shakuntala on the stage. And Shakuntala is just newlywed. She is lost in the thoughts of Dushyant, who has left her in Rishi Kanwa's ashram, saying that, see, Rishi is not there. I am the king. I cannot take you away from the ashram unless and until your father blesses you. So you will stay here, and now you are a queen. So I'll come back and take you as the queen's honor to my kingdom. Now, poor girl, she's very delicate. वो प्रकृति कन्या है. She is very delicate. She is lost because she is newlywed. There is a scene of ashram. Now imagine we are all audience. There is a scene of ashram on the stage. On one corner of the ashram, the stage opens where Shakuntala is lost in the thoughts of Dushyant. And to show Shringar Ras, Kalidas shows lotus, Kalidas shows small birds, he shows a small, deer, all these things. They generate Shringar Ras. So when the scene opens, all of us are in Shringar Ras. Now from the other side, a rishi enters. From the other corner of the stage, a rishi enters, and because it is in the Valkal Vastra, so we have the Shantaras. Now, out of one, two rasas are created. Now, audience, when it looks to the left, we find Shakuntala. When we see to the right, we find Shantaras. So, at the same time, audience is experiencing two rasas. Now, the rishi comes further and asks Shakuntala, Bho Shakuntale Neeranay. Give me some water. Shakuntala, please give me some water. And Shakuntala is absorbed into her thoughts and she doesn't pay any attention. Now what's happening? The audience becomes cautious. Audience is alarmed because the second time the rishi comes further, he says, Shakuntala, you have not heard I am Durvasa. Why aren't you looking at me? And the name Durvasa creates bhai in the audience. Oh goodness, she is ignoring Durvasa. My goodness. So see the shift of rasa from Shringar to Shant, from Shant to Vatsalya, from Vatsalya to Bhai. And the moment you look at Shakuntala, the constant ras is Shringar. Every time you look at Shakuntala, it's in Shringar. But on other side, there is a rapid change of rasas from Shant to Vatsalya to Bhai. Now Rishi comes further, third time, and he speaks loudly. Putri, why you are not listening to me? I am Durvasa. I am asking for water. And then what happens? All the Kumar and Kumarikas from the ashram, they start peeping from the back. That, oh God, why Shakuntala is not listening? We can't go. Now Durvasa is in anger. We can't go and give water to Durvasa. So they are peeping, and imagine the audience, which was actually sitting in the relaxing position like now, they come at the edge of their seats. Had it been their, in their power, they would have rushed to the stage and given water to Durvasa and would have said, please, you go away. But this is not going to happen. And Durvasa, for the fourth time, comes into Rodra, Krodh. And he says, whomsoever you are engrossed with would forget you forever. And the moment he says this, whole of the audience is in Karuna Ras. They start crying. What beauty of rasa! From just one simple stage setting, nothing is changed, only two characters. And see how many rasas they travel, where the audience of all ages, of all places, of all times get involved into same reaction. Not even once this audience reaction is missed at this scene. Each audience, whether it was of Kalidas' time or today's time, it would fill the eyes with tears when Durvasa says, Dushyant will forget you forever. And the same thing we have experienced in the Ram Dhanush. The moment Ram breaks the Dhanush, the whole audience comes into the joyous mood, even if it is broken by a small gully Ram Leela. Wherever Ram breaks the Dhanush, whether it is a small child or a very ardent actor or whosoever, we ardently stand up with the joy and say, Jai Shri Ram. This is art. This is the engrossment of art that Bharat Muni talks. Why should we get engaged with an unknown actor, with an unknown plot, with an unknown performer? We have not written the plot. What is that which connects? It is always that juice that releases from the glands. And the moment juice doesn't release, we don't enjoy that scene. And we say, oh my God, what comedy. It doesn't make us laugh. Oh my God, what shringar. It doesn't give us those feels. If our glands are not activated, we don't feel emotions. But if the glands start releasing the juice, we feel emotions, get connected, we laugh, we cry, we become valiant. On each 15th August and 26th January, we want to go to border after listening all the patriotic songs. And with all Raksha Bandhan, we cry for our brothers and sisters. This is the power of rasa. That's what Natya Shastra talks about. After talking in detail about ras and bhav in the medical terminology, he comes down to the plots. Plot, actor, and language. Again, in a very scientific manner. How many types of plots can be there? So he says there are 10 types of drama. Ekanki, Prahasan, Dima, Mahakavya. He talks about 10 types of drama. And 10 types of drama have their own requirements, own characters, own types of languages. And when he comes to the language, he's so very particular that who will speak Prakrit, who will speak, very, very Susanskrit Bhasha. A Raja cannot speak a villager's language. If there is a Raja, the different people will call Raja with different addresses. Rani will call him Arya. Guru will call him Shishya. Villager will call him Maharaj. Everyone will have a different type of address to the king. And similar relations with all characters, with the other people, they are established in the characters. That is how the languages travel. He also talks about meaningless words like ararara, oho, aha, bho, all those words which actually have some meaning. How do we use them? Where should we use them? What type of one is the Lok Vritti Natya? Lok Vritti is where the materialism is sought, where we can use imagination, which are not realistic, but there are which we have the realistic drama, which will show the realism. So at that time only he has differentiated into two types of drama, one theme which would deal with the realistic themes and one theme which would deal with the imaginative theme. And imaginative theme has immense span. You can experiment anything with imaginative theme, with the properties, with the places, with the events and happenings and characters, anything. This alien world that American or the Hollywood movies now celebrate, the alien world with extra ears or extra, eyes or reducing some organ and all, Bharat Muni has talked long back about it. He says, well, in your Natya Dharmi and Lok Dharmi, there are two things. So Lok Dharmi is the realistic thing and Natya Dharmi is the very, very imaginative thing. You can just use your imagination and go ahead. Do whatever you want to do. You can have properties as static properties like a hat, like a kangan, like a anguthi. Or you can also have properties which are movable properties like a goat's kid, like a pigeon. You can have all those things. And then he also talks about the wisdom behind the patra. A king cannot be murkh at all. A queen cannot be murkh at all. You have to have the certain level of intelligence given to the characters. That is how the stereotype analysis are created. That is how the yardsticks are created. That is how the benchmarks are created. How do we say this is classic and this is not? So Bharat Muni says there are three types of literature: Tatkalik, Samayik, and Kaljayi. Emergent, contemporary, and universal. Anything which is emergent, something happened today and you write something, okay, this is emergent, tomorrow it may not be relevant. So it is tatkalik. You know, sometimes someone just scolds us and we write 2 lines. And tomorrow, if we read those lines, we will actually tear them off because it's emergent today only. But then he says Samayik are periodic. So we have Victorian and classical and Renaissance and modern, where there is a continuity of the same mood for some time. So that is Samayik. You have that mood prolonged for some time. And then the third is Kaljayi or classic or universal, which beyond the times, beyond the places, beyond the people, beyond the ages, it keeps appealing again and again and again. That is how Ramayana and Mahabharata are Kaljayi. That is how Vedas are Kaljayi. That is how Bhagavad Gita is Kaljayi. That is how Puranas and Upanishad are Kaljayi. Because they keep appealing. They have those dimensions which are not periodic and not emergent. After talking about the plots, about the themes, he talks about the language. He talks about Abhushan. He talks about music. He talks about the Vadya, string Vadya, then the beat Vadya. He talks about everything very, very, very minutely. And there comes sound engineering. He gives a spatial arrangement of sounds. If there is a Shrangar scene going on, you can't use the bigul. If there is a war, you can't use sitar. That is how the music enhances the impact. And it actually creates and brings our purifications to our moods. That is how we relate to the scene and path and theory and plot and character. If the music is mismatched, again the chit would be disturbed and we won't be at the equilibrium. The ant is Bharat Vakya. What is Bharat Vakya? He says we should start with Nandi and end with Bharat Vakya. Nandi can be any shlok according to the faith and belief of the writer. But Bharat Vakya is a static. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti is the Bharat Vakya. So again, we have to come down to Bharat Vakya to understand that art has a purpose, and the purpose of art is to bring happiness, bring Paramanand. What the world cannot give, we go to art. So art is our escape world. When we escape to the art brings back to the life. That is how we need not die to know what is death. We need not, put the war over there to understand what the war can be, because art teaches us. It is the micro out of the macro that the art teaches us. I think on this plethora, we should reread Natya Shastra. I know Natya Shastra is immense. I would need umpteen time to talk about Natya Shastra. But if you have any questions, I'll be really, really happy to answer them. Can I stop here, Smita Ben, if you permit me?
Nirja, we are not satisfied. We really want more and more, like Amritam. And yes, I understand there is a time barrier, but I invite anyone who wants to ask any question to Nirja Ben. Please go ahead. Ask first, raise your finger, and then please ask her the question if you want. Any one of you?
I think Jhelum ma'am.
Yeah,
Jhelum.
please. Jhelum, please come forward and ask.